Oh, reader, hey, come closer. I have some exciting news for you guys because today I'm here to announce the lottery edition of Gamenightathon. What is Gamenightathon? So for those of you who are new, Gamenightathon is a readathon that I host twice a year. I host a round in July and I host a round in December. You do not have to have taken part in the July round in order to be able to take part in the December round. There is a sort of like benefit for the people who won the July round, so there is some incentive for taking place in the July round, but it isn't like you cannot take part at all if you haven't taken part in the July round. The July round is always based off of a board game. This year the board game was Labyrinth, and the December round is always based on the lottery, as that to me feels quite seasonally. Now, I do not encourage you guys to play the lottery. Of course, if you're just gonna play it like once a year and not put too much money in it, of course go ahead. But I'm not encouraging betting behavior and stuff like that. People can lose like a ton of money on that, and it's almost never worth it. The odds are just very much stacked against you. But that is also the same for this particular readathon. However, there are no big stakes. The biggest stake that you're placing in there is reading books and hopefully having a good time with them. But so, the readathon, Gamenightathon, is going to run from the 1st of December until the 31st of December. The aim of the readathon is basically just reading books, and the maximum amount of books that any person can submit for this readathon is going to be 10 books. The minimum, well, not really the minimum is just basically 1, but your odds are more or less even if you just read 5 books. So 5 books is basically what you need to be reading to really have a chance at winning Gamenightathon. If you read 10, your chances improve a little bit, but it's not like they improve exponentially neither. Now, there are 2 visuals that I will share with you guys. The first one is the prompt card, and the other one is going to be the lottery ticket. So concept being, you are going to be reading books based off of the prompts on the board, and you are going to submit those as being your winning numbers. You see that every prompt has a number on top of it, so basically if you read a book for prompt number 5, then you are entering number 5 as one of the winning numbers. At the end of the month, I will be doing a random number generator to figure out the 5 winning numbers. That is going to be the sequence that wins, and then we will use mathematics to figure out who was closest to guessing the winning sequence, and that person will win a book off of their wish list. If you don't have a wish list, we can still try and figure out a way to get a book to you. But yes, the wish list is definitely the easiest way to do it, but last year I managed to do it as well without, so there are always other options to look for in case Amazon does not deliver to your country. Now, let's go through the visual and the concept. So as I indicated, you have a grid here of 4x4 that is basically like a bingo board. It will only come into play for one particular reason. You are going to guess at the 5 winning numbers. However, as I indicated in the beginning of my video, you do have the opportunity to submit a maximum of 10 books. So how does that happen? So basically everybody has the opportunity to submit 5 books, and based off of your choices for those first 5 books, you have the opportunity to unlock extra slots. If you look at the lottery tickets, you will see that the first 5 slots are like open, and then there's a little bit of a line to indicate a little bit of a barrier towards those remaining 5 slots. For those remaining 5 slots, there's basically criteria that you have to commit to in order to unlock one or more or all of these slots. So the 5 different ways in which you can unlock an extra slot is what I'm going to be going into first, just because those are things to keep in mind when you're selecting your other prompts, and so that's why I thought it makes more sense to go into those first. So the first way in which you can unlock an extra slot is if the first 5 books that you submit, so in those first 5 base slots, are all randomly chosen. There are 2 options for you to go with here. First of all, the one option is to randomly choose a prompt number for all of them. The second option is to have, let's say, 3 books selected for every single prompt. You do choose which prompts you want to go for. However, a random selector, or like I don't know, your cat or another person or any type of random method of selection chooses the one book out of those three that you're going to be reading. So two methods. Either the prompt number is selected by randomization, or the book that you're reading for the prompt is randomized. Next up, the second way to unlock an extra slot, and I should clarify from the beginning, this is not in order. In order for you to unlock an extra slot, you can use either one of the 5 different criteria, but it's not like if you didn't go for the randomization that you cannot unlock the slot that is linked to the next criteria. So you can just use these criteria insignificantly. You can choose to only go for the last one of the criteria and not do the other ones. For example, there's no order within the extra slots. The next criteria, so the second criteria, is all of your books either follow the rule of the prompt or they have the icon on the cover. Basically, as you can see, the prompt grid contains 16 icons this time around. It does not contain 16 prompts. And there are 2 ways for you to fulfill these prompts. So either you are going to fulfill the prompt that I will give you verbally, or that will be in the other list that you will see shortly. And that is like the exact rule of the law, let's say. It's exactly like read a book with this in order to unlock prompt number 1, for example. The other option is for you to read a book that has the icon of prompt number 1 on the cover. So for those of you who have taken part in Gamenightathon July edition, it is not the same. In July you could associate a book to an icon based on whatever interpretation of the icon that you wanted to do. This round, it is really like this icon needs to appear on your cover. Basically, for example, icon number 1, the candy cane. Your book needs to have a candy cane on it, or otherwise you cannot count it as an icon on the cover. Now, that will probably mean that the books are going to be skewing very much towards Christmas time in case you go for that interpretation of the prompts, because most of the icons are very much sort of like only related to Christmas time. There are a few that are much more general, such as the stars one and like champagne, for example, that can definitely appear as well in like a different context, but a lot of them are going to be very restricted to Christmassy reads. But in any case, for you to be able to unlock an extra slot, you need to choose to have all of your prompts follow the written out prompt instruction, or to have all of your books be books that have one of these icons on the cover. Next criteria, next way to unlock another slot is to have a bingo. So bingo is just a line of 4 subsequent tiles, so either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. If you complete a bingo line with your first 5 books, then you unlock an extra slot. Fourth method of unlocking an extra slot is for there to be an uneven number of letters within the title of your book. So this is just a random one on my end. So it just means that if you count up all the letters of the title, it needs to come to something like 11, for example, an uneven number of letters. And then the final way to unlock an extra slot is actually a past activity, and so for a lot of you is unavailable, but that was basically to win the July edition of Gamenightathon. Now the July edition of Gamenightathon was a edition in which we had teams, so basically that means anybody who was on Team Heart in July has now unlocked this extra slot. You don't need to do anything else for it, you can just fill it up with whatever you want. This is your time to shine. Final thing to clarify about these unlockings is that the criteria for unlocking is always only applicable to the first 5 books, so to those books that you put in those first 5 base slots. So let's say you unlocked a 6th slot. In order for you to unlock a 7th slot, this 6th book does not need to comply with these criteria. Basically, when you've completed your first 5 slots, that's when you know how many extra slots you have managed to unlock, because it needs to have happened with those first 5 books. And so I think that the final thing left for me to do is for me to go through the list of prompts for you guys. So We have 16 prompts, let's go through them. The first one, the candy cane. Read a book that you have been looking forward to. You know, candy cane, nice little sweet treat, and so the idea about the first prompt is basically just choose something that you are going to be happy about having on your TBR. Second prompt is the ornament, and therefore you shall be reading a beautiful book. Third prompt is a stocking. A stocking is typically filled with these like small little gifts, and therefore you shall read a short book. For this short, technically speaking, I will count as anything under 300, but I will also not really gatekeep. If you are somebody for who a 500-page book is a short book, then sure, you can count it. Like if it's a real stretch for you to read anything shorter than that. But otherwise I would say anything under 300 pages is what typically is considered a short book. The fourth prompt is the candle, for which you will be reading a spooky read. Fifth book is the snowflake, for which you shall be reading a cozy read. The sixth book is two hands reaching out to one another, so it is about connection, and for this one I decided to go for a book with disability representation in it. The seventh book is the sleigh, and for that you shall be reading a book featuring travel. The eighth book is the gingerbread man, for which you shall be reading a book that humanizes objects. So let's say a talking animal, which happens quite regularly within books, but also something like talking swords, or just like swords with feeling, or whatever, like any type of inanimate thing that has now been given feelings or the ability to speak, etc. Ninth prompt is the stars icon, and therefore you shall be reading a 5-star prediction. Make advantage of the end of the year to still get around to one of those books that you have the highest of hopes for. 10th book is the snowman, for which you will be reading a funny book. 11th prompt is a gift, for which you will be reading a bookish recommendation. This can be either a recommendation that was given to you personally, either in the form of somebody just telling you like, ah, you will love this book, or in the form of somebody giving you a book. I mean, we can consider that a recommendation. They gave you that book expecting it to be something that you would love. But it can also be just like a general bookish recommendation you see out on the internet. Perhaps like if you like this book, then you love this one. But also just like books perfect for the season or whatever. Any type of content like that can also count for the bookish recommendation. The 12th prompt is the glasses of champagne. We are entering a new year, and for that I want you to read the newest book on your TBR. Indulge on the new stuff. I know that this season is very like typically used to kind of get through those final things on your past TBR, but also let's just indulge in something new, glimmering, shiny. I always like to put in a little bit of a random, weird little prompt in there, and so the 13th prompt is the lobster. And I could have gone for a little bit of a more interpretive prompt for this one, but I just decided that I really want you guys to read a book with a lobster in it, so go ahead for it. Go ahead with that. I definitely already know a book that has a lobster on the cover, for example, but it is a Dutch book, so though I think it has also been translated. But so yeah, that one definitely would count for the icon interpretation of this, and I'm assuming that there's a lobster in the book itself. I don't know. A lot of people had to read this one for class, but I never had to, so I don't actually know what it is about. The 14th prompt is the bell, and for that you will be reading a new release, for which I'm counting the entirety of 2025, so whichever book was released within 2025 you can count for this one. If you have an arc for a 2026 release, my apologies, but you are not able to count it. Only 2025 releases. The 15th prompt is the mistletoe, for which you will be reading a book featuring romance. This can be like the main thing within the book, or just something that is like prevalent within it. Like I wouldn't want like a book that just has like inklings of romance in the sidelines, but a lot of books have romance to some extent within like the protagonist and some other character, for example. Even if that isn't necessarily like the main goal, that could still count. And so the 16th prompt is the Advent Calendar Read, which is basically a book that you're going to be working on almost the entirety of the month, because it is a book that you're going to be making progress in every single day up until Christmas. You can decide to include the 24th or not, that is up to you. Some advent calendars stop at the 24th, some have the 25th included, so I will leave that same sort of leeway. I actually have an advent calendar book on my end that I can use for this, for example, but you can just as well choose whichever book you want. You just have to make sure that you are making progress in it every single day up until the 24th or the 25th. Obviously, there's no way for me to gatekeep this, but that is the intention behind this book, is just to slowly make your way through it and just like unpack a little bit of this book throughout the month. The most ideal for this would of course be books that have 24 or 25 chapters in them, because then you can easily split it across the month. But yeah, do with that what you want. There's full liberty here to go nuts on whichever book you have been meaning to slot into this readathon. So yes, those are all the prompts. So quick recap of this readathon. You are basically going to try and guess the winning sequence of 5 numbers that I'm going to be randomly drawing in the beginning of 2026 that will determine the winning lottery sequence and the winner of Gamenightathon 2025. Now, you are able to submit 5 books without anything special added to them. You just get those 5 slots to fill in with whichever one of the prompts appeals to you. However, if you want to use one of the other 5 slots, you will have to meet one of the 5 criteria that I have explained earlier within the video. Your first 5 books will have to comply with one or more of these criteria in order to unlock further slots and increase your chances of winning Gamenightathon. Because basically at the end of the month we will be running random number generators to determine our 5 winners. We will determine the people who have the most amount of numbers correct first. Based off of that, if there is an equal amount between different people who are taking part, we will then take a look at how many of those numbers are within the first 5 numbers you've submitted. So the base 5 are still going to be the most important. Let's say somebody has gotten 4 numbers right, like 2 people have gotten 4 numbers right, but the first one of them got 3 numbers within the first 5 correct, and then the 4th one was coming from the extra slots, and the other person got all 4 from the base slots, then that person wins out on top of the other person, because the base numbers are of more importance than the extra slots that you've unlocked later on. If there is still an equal between those 2 criterions, then we are going to have a look at the order and try to figure out which one had the order more correct than the other one. If then it's still like a complete equal between multiple people, then we are going to run the random generator again to get a 6 number, and whichever one comes out on top wins. If we have to go through a 7 number or 8, then of course we're also doing that. But like, let's assume that the odds are very unlikely for us to have to do that. But so yes, this is Gamenightathon 2025 Lottery Edition in a nutshell. Hope you guys enjoy this concept, hope it makes sense. Definitely let me know if there are any questions down below. I will have the 2 visuals available to you on my G Drive. I do not yet have the submission form. The submission form will be available for you in the description of this video at the start of December. It will also be linked in the Discord that you can access through the link that will be in this video as well. In order to unlock the Gamenightathon section of Discord, you do have to go to the roles section of Discord and react to the Gamenightathon message that is in there in order for you to get access to the different channels about Gamenightathon as well. But so yeah, with that, I am leaving you guys. I'm very much looking forward to December, very much looking forward to reading with these prompts or these icons in mind. I, on my end, have a very open December. I've made no plans for it reading wise, and so I'm very happy to let myself be guided by these prompts in order to hopefully get the best out of my reading month in the month of December. But so yeah, hope to see you all in December for Gamenightathon, and may the odds be in your favor. It is a lottery, the odds are definitely against you, but you could always be that lucky person this time around. But so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys for the next one. Bye!